before Caesar, Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar, Rome was a republic far before then. And Cincinnatus was a farmer. And Cincinnatus was stopped, the legend says. He was plowing his field. And they said, your country needs you. He dropped his plow, he went out, saved Rome, came back to his plow. Now, who did our founding fathers? And I can go all day long with anybody about Washington and Jefferson and Hamilton and Franklin and Madison and Patrick Henry, my favorite, the voice of thunder. How badass are you that your Patrick Henry and all the other founding fathers feared you if they were on the wrong side of you? You know what? All the founding fathers, when they put together the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, they feared government. These morons in Washington, D.C. have forgotten that the Constitution created our government, but there's this thing called the Bill of Rights, which is supposed to protect us from our government. And they forget that. But our founding fathers all went home. Washington went home to Mount Vernon. Jefferson went home to Monticello. They all went home. These politicians today don't know where home is. It's unfreaking believable. Now, I'm going to inject a history story that I bet you none of you know, because I like being original. My favorite stories. And I told Tommy when I got my picture taken with her, I said, I'm going to give you a great introduction with a great Texas history story. Like many of you, I watched growing up the Alamo. John Wayne playing Davy Crockett. Jim Bowie, not David Bowie, Jim Bowie. All of those heroes, 220, 240, gave up their lives in Alamo. Do you know why they died? Sam Houston didn't want them to die. Sam Houston wanted them to leave. But they wanted to give Sam Houston more time, and they were willing to die. So my wife and I like taking long weekend trips. Why? Because I don't like vacations, and after 3 or 4 days, I'm done. So we go to cities. We recently went to a wedding last year down in San Antonio, and I finally got to go to the Alamo. And while at the Alamo, I learned a story that I never knew before. And we have a great pride here in Kentucky and Ohio. Let's face it, Ohio, I think you got about 8 presidents. Kentucky, we've got Abraham Lincoln, Henry Clay. We all have great history. Each state has its special history. But the guest I'm going to introduce is from Texas, so I'm going to use a Texas story. There was a young man from South Carolina, and he was a pistol. He apparently led his law school class in some rebellion, and he and all of his classmates got expelled. After that, when he got his law license and he got in court, he actually took a cane to his opponent and beat the hell out of him with his cane. So what did this guy do? Just like Davy Crockett said, Andrew Jackson can go to hell, I'm going to Texas. This young man went to Texas. This young man was only 29 years old. 29. And he was outside Santa Anna's lines. He was safe. He didn't have to be in the Alamo. He was on a mission for Colonel Travis. And he had to communicate something back to him. And the men around him said, listen, that message is not going to do Colonel Travis any good. They're doomed. And this young 29-year-old man looked at them and said, I have a duty to get this message to Colonel Travis. This young man, 29 years old from South Carolina, snuck through at night, snuck through at night, Santa Anna's lines, and made it back to the Alamo to deliver the message that he was supposed to deliver. And this young man, 29 years old, died at the Alamo. Knowing he was going to die at the Alamo. This young man's name is James Bonham. And when you go to the Alamo in San Antonio, they got these statues. And outside the Alamo in the monument, there's a statue of Travis. There's a statue of Bowie. There's a statue of Crockett. And there's a statue of Bonham. And I never knew who he was, so I started studying up on the guy. But ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, all of you all know this. We have to follow our leader, Donald John Trump. We have to fight back with all we got. And unfortunately, that might mean that a healthcare worker will be fired. That might mean that Eric Deters gets thrown in jail by a federal judge. It might mean that some of you might lose a little bit of money. All of you, all the sacrifices that you make. Cassie Schabel and Andrea Humpert up there, she told me, she goes, Eric, I didn't clean my house for a month. You know, we all have to make sacrifices, but I'm telling you folks, we have to make those sacrifices. Just like the spirit of Leonidas, just like the spirit of Cincinnatus, just like the spirit of James Bonham. And when you go to Texas, I've been to Dallas, I've been to San Antonio, I've been to Fort Worth. My family, when we went to the Dallas Cowboys game, I apologize, all you haters. When we went to the Dallas Cowboys game, one night we went over to Fort Worth, and the neatest event that we attended was the rodeo. It was patriotic, no masks, no vaccines. It was absolutely incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, we are from Ohio. We are from Kentucky. We are from Indiana. But ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, in the spirit of James Bonham and Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and Colonel Travis, let's give one hell of a welcome to the one, the only, the smart, the firecracker, the beautiful Tommy Lahren.